Babylonians, and that Jeremiah has found himself in stocks. Okay, he has been, put in prison. He's in stocks. He has 3 times now prophesied against Jerusalem. Basically, saying about, people are going to be taken in captive. The city's going to be overrun. The priests, the nobles, the king will be taken into captivity. Okay, first time he does it is at the Potsherd Gate, which is actually near where the the garbage was put out of the city. The second one was in the temple itself, and the third one of prophecy is before the priest Pashur. Okay, he was the one who had the jurisdiction to put him in stocks, in prison. So it's happened 3 times. He finds himself, and he's telling the truth. So, but these are his words that he feels that he's been duped. The word in Hebrew, it can be also translated deceived or even seduced. Okay, and that almost like God is sinning, but it's attractive to Jeremiah. Maybe that's the best thing, that this whole thing to do God's will, to be God's instrument, is attractive, and he says yes to it. But this is one of those consequences of following God too. That this is when the wind's blowing the other way. Whether it's people's appetites or their sin, perversions even, when they're called into question, that people don't want to hear it. And the people didn't want to hear what he was saying too. Okay, about the destruction of Jerusalem, how they had strayed, how the priests weren't a help, and everything like that. So in the end, God triumphs, in this wanting him to do this, and he says, he said yes, and this is the the consequences of it. I am an object of laughter. Everyone mocks me. That he has to give this message of the violence and outrage is the message that he gives, the word of the Lord, he gives, and that he receives only reproach and derision. And then he says, I will not mention him. I'm not going to do this. But I love the imagery here he uses, which I speak his name no more, but it becomes like a burning fire in my heart, imprisoned by my bones. Okay, almost like a fire that's burning inside the rib cage and in his heart, but the heart is burning, and that he can't hold it. He has to speak it. So, it starts off with a complaint, but then it ends with almost, what am I going to do? A resolve, or a marveling that this is just a difficult situation I find myself, that I still do it. So, okay. Our psalm is Psalm 63. The response is, my soul is thirsting for you, O Lord my God. O God, you are my God whom I seek. For you my flesh pines and my soul thirsts. Like the earth, parched, lifeless, and without water. Thus I have gazed toward you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory. For your kindness is a greater good than life. My lips shall glorify you. Thus I will bless you while I live. Lifting up my hands, I will call upon your name. As with the riches of a banquet shall my soul be satisfied, and with exultant lips my mouth shall praise you. You are my help. In the shadow of your wings I shout for joy. My soul clings to you. Your right hand holds me fast. Okay, so you would think it would be maybe more you do to me, Lord, because that's so striking that in Jeremiah that Psalm 63 is really more of a psalm of praise, an acknowledgement of who God is and the need that we have for God. Okay, to stay close to Him and to still praise Him, that He satisfies us as with riches of a banquet. And with exultant lips, my mouth will still praise you. Okay? That it is God whom I seek, that my flesh and my soul thirst. And he uses the image of earth. It's absolutely dry, parched land, lifeless, without water. That's the thirst that he has that psalmist has for the for God. Okay, and there's temple worship here. I gazed on you toward you in the sanctuary to see your power and glory, for your kindness is a greater good than life. My lips shall glorify you. So, and then the God is the psalmist's help. You're my help. In the shadow of your wings, I shout for joy. My soul clings fast to you. Your right hand upholds me. So, wow, that would be a great, and it should be our desire, our stance with regard to God, that we thirst for God. That we long for God, and in our hearts, not necessarily in our minds, although that's a help too, but not conceptually, but experientially, that we, not the concept of God, but we hunger for the experience of God, not consolations all the time. We will not live in heaven on earth. I don't know that there's anybody that did that all the time, even great saints like Francis of Assisi, who had a close relationship with God, had dry times and also suffering too. So, we are passing through, but we get little tastes here to keep going. And, as we get more close to God, we get more of an experience of God. We trust God. We involve God in our decision making. We look for God's voice, whether through His Word, through other people, or through a sense that we're called to do something. I think we hear God's voice more clearly in the quiet, and also when we don't waste our time with the distractions of the world. Okay, whether too much internet, TV at night, whatever it might be, that it doesn't have a prominent place that God has the prominent place. Our second reading is from chapter 12 in Romans. So we're continuing this reading of Romans. Okay. A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. I urge you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, your spiritual worship. Do not conform yourselves to this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your body, that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So you have this, we continue our reading to this, that Paul is writing to this community in Rome. It's not a community that he knows well. It's definitely not a community that he founded, and that he is making contact with him. This letter to Paul's letter to the Romans is a very theological letter. He's not necessarily dealing with problems. He may not know what the problems are there. It's more, the bishop who's teaching here. And he begins by saying, I urge you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, your spiritual worship. Okay, we worship with our bodies. Okay, we sing, we listen, we respond, we receive Jesus in the Eucharist. Okay, and we enter into the mystery of the liturgy. The liturgy word liturgy comes from a Greek word liturgia, which comes from two Greek words, laos, which is people, and we get our word laity, and the other one is ergos, which is work. Force times distance. Ergs is the measurement of work, and also that we get our word ergonomic. Okay, literally, it's work, moving, and that that we enter into that liturgy with our bodies. We enter into all things with our bodies, and that we should offer our bodies as a living sacrifice, so that what we do with our bodies through the day, that we seek the good of other people, we help other people, we listen to other people, that maybe we control our body by refraining from saying things or doing things that are just not in conformity to God's will. Okay, and we have a sense of that. You get closer to God, He convicts you, and that part of me is not really conformed with God's will, and I need to begin to. So we use our body to do that, and our mind too. And he goes on. Paul goes on to say, "Do not conform yourselves to this age." So, okay, that's the year, the whatever year in first century. Okay, and this age has its plenty of problems with it too, with falsity and just the things that people value that really aren't valuable, things or experiences. They have their place, but they do possess people, and people go after them, and that we're called to be transformed by the renewal of our mind, and that we may discern what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect, as Paul says here, what is good and pleasing and perfect. So, that which is pleasing to God. Do we go through our day wanting to please God? Did you begin the day today thinking, I want to go through the day and please God? So part of that would be, one thing I can do is maybe read the scriptures, read the readings for the day, for the daily Mass, or read the readings for the upcoming Sunday Mass or the past Sunday Mass. How am I doing with this, and what God is saying? Our gospel is, this is from chapter 16 of Matthew. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer greatly from the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Then Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. "God forbid, Lord, no such thing shall ever happen to you." He turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What profit would it be for one to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? Or what can one give in exchange for his life? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in his Father's glory, and then he will repay all according to his conduct." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So last week was Peter, saying, "You are the Christ. Who do you say that I am? You are the Christ," and that he's very adamant about that. And that it's Jesus even says, Peter's confession is a little bit different too. In Matthew, it's "You are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God," and that to make that connection, you are the Messiah. Okay, people were waiting for the Messiah, so that might be easy, but then you are the Son of the living God. That is a step of faith, and really God is working through Peter to help him understand that. That now we continue with that Caesarea Philippi. We're still right there in that episode. That he began to show Jesus telling them, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to suffer greatly under the elders, the chief priests and the scribes. Sort of like Jeremiah in the first reading, that it's going to be, he'll be an affront to them, and that Jesus will be killed and on the third day be raised. And Peter, come on, he takes him aside, away from the apostles, and that he says, "God forbid, Lord, this such a thing happened to you." And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." And he's speaking to Satan. I'm not even going to say probably. He's speaking to Satan. Because Satan is working through the humanity, the way the poor vision that Peter has of God's plan, that he's short-circuiting God's plan here, and that he says, "You are an obstacle to me," both to Satan and to Peter too. And he said this one here, "Peter, you are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." And we can understand Peter feeling that way and thinking that way, because he's learning this whole plan. But it's really an affront to Jesus, because Jesus knows the whole plan, and that he knows why he's there. He knows why he is been sent. He who is God is takes on human flesh and becomes the source of salvation for the world. So that this is a big temptation to stop. Jesus is human too. Then Jesus said to his disciples, and he's telling them that they're going to be getting the same thing. You want to come and follow me? That you got to deny yourself, take up your cross. Okay, and follow me. Whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What profit would there to be to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? For no one, or what can one exchange for his life? The Son of Man will come with his angels in his Father's glory, and he will repay all of us according to our conduct. Okay, so, God sees what we do in the flesh. Do we all, like going back to Paul, do we offer our bodies as a living sacrifice? And are our eyes on God? Are we willing to do the difficult thing? Well, and even the easy thing too. Sometimes we don't even do the easy thing. Somebody that I admire, not too many celebrities I admire, but this is one that I really do admire, at least in terms of her work, was Audrey Hepburn. And that she, after her career, she dedicated her life to children who are poor and in need in foreign countries, and spent much of her time being an ambassador for UNICEF, seeking to help. And did hands-on too, caring for these families, and that's it, sort of losing one's life to find it. That okay, not acting, but yes, I will do this, and finding great satisfaction, as well as God and herself also in helping others. God bless.